All right, let's see if this is working this time. Raspy's on. Good morning, Raspy. I guess it's working. I'm just checking on my phone here to make sure it's streaming. So, Raspy, we're going to find out who's going to be the top four. It must be working because I got a notice from, well, not that. Let's see here. Where is my live stream stuff? On my phone. On my phone here. I gotta switch accounts because it won't show me my own stuff here. Anyway, we're gonna have college football playoffs. Oh, sweet, it's working. All right, good. That's good to know. So I am using a new streaming platform today, and I hope. Oh, that's not working, is it? Let me see if I can find my chat settings here and get my chat information. Uh-oh. So I want that right there. And let's see if I can put this in my software. Yeah, that's why. It's using the wrong chat. Nothing like being on a new platform and trying to get everything all set up and ready to go. This chat is ready to display messages. I have no life away from my work, kids, and home automation. Yep, I appreciate that, Raspy. This morning, for those that have the self-cleaning kind of oven, that is currently in progress downstairs, and it smells like I'm burning the house down. So yes, life outside of my streaming is going on behind me. So if you hear a kid or two scream or fight or whatever, I know I said this last time too, but they usually pick the time when I get on live streams to start, being kids. I don't know if you heard that. That was fun. Anyway, they're having a good time down there. All right. I'm just going to wait a couple minutes here to get a couple folks on. I'm pleased that this streaming platform is actually working. For those that care about stuff like that, I'm using Restream.io for this, and it allows you to stream to multiple platforms at the same time. So I'm over on Twitch and also on YouTube. I don't have any other big platforms. I'm not a big Facebook guy, so I don't stream over there live. But anyway, that's exciting. What's going on today? My wife always decides to do that at the most. Yeah. Well, right behind me, you can't see it, but I have a green screen, so it kind of blocks people from coming in. Doing stuff behind me. Good and clear. Thanks. One of these days I need to do a behind the scenes and show you my setup here. I'm always interested in how people stream and what their setups are. I'm using a webcam right now, an HD webcam. One of these days I want to get a real camera, a couple of soft boxes, and then a green screen behind me, just so that I don't have a bunch of well, I'm in a like a guest bedroom for my office, because when we went work from home, my guest bedroom became the office. And now I'm rambling. Let's see. I want to pull up a couple of things I'm going to use today. So let me open all of these. Let's see if my stream stutters away as it opens 4 tabs at the same time. I did some fine tuning on OBS too. I realized oh, cool. I'm glad that Twitch is working, and it's an option for those that don't have as good of experience on YouTube. Yeah, I've never streamed on Twitch before. I know that's bad to say for those of us that do this kind of stuff. I don't do a lot of gaming. Oh, look, Raspy showed up on Twitch. Excellent. So I added a bunch of cool stuff. I emulate Dr. Z's because he's awesome. But he had a bunch of cool things on his. So the subscriber count stuff is pretty neat to show up on there. So it lets me know when people are jumping on. Um, all right. So what was I talking about? So we're going to talk about blueprints a little bit today. Let me get a couple more folks on. Actually, how does it tell me how many people are on? Do 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 do. Yeah, I need to turn that off too. Wow, best. Not sure what that means exactly. Wow, best. Hello, Jeff Hammer in Combridge. I'm going to mute my phone here because it makes too much racket. And let me get a sip of today's drink is water again. I have coffee early in the morning and I can't, if I drink too much coffee, I start doing a little bit of jittering. So I'll just drink a little bit of water here. Let's talk about blueprints. So what are blueprints? So in oh, you moderate other streamers on Twitch? I had no idea. So when I talk about Dr. Z's, it's going to get back to him, isn't it? He's going to find out I'm talking about him. Actually, I've chatted with him a couple times on. I just got distracted by the chat question that just came up. Jeff. What am I using for thermostats? You're using Bad Nest. Oh my goodness. So Nest has been, I didn't write the Nest integration. Alan Porter did that, and kudos to Alan and all the work that's gone on before Alan's work. Yeah, only good stuff reported to Doc. Justin is asking me questions I can't even answer. Let me get back to that. Jay West YP is on my live stream. That's my bro. He's in South Texas here. So for thermostats, Jeff, I am using Nest. Nest has an integration now, and where am I going here? Configuration integrations. You can install the Nest integration. However, before you do that, there's a lot of work to do. So I've never experienced, and this is what I'm using, the Nest integration. I've never experienced Bad Nest. I've never used that. I used Works with Nest, and then I migrated over to my devices over to Nest, and then I went into the whole getting the integration set up. So there is, if you go to this page, and I have a video or two, but here's the thing about my videos, and I hate to de-promote my videos, but I need to go do a top to bottom video for doing this the right way. Because when I made the first video about Nest, using Nest without the integration being ready, just the API, getting all that set up, I learned a lot of stuff. And then I made a second video, and then I made a third video whenever the Nest integration became available in 1.18. And so I get questions from time to time about things that aren't applicable anymore in some of the videos. So I almost need to make a top to bottom video. But here on this page here, Home Assistant Integrations Nest, you have a pretty good write-up. So you have to go through this whole device access registration, the device access console. You have to get your cloud console credentials. You've got to set up some authorized redirect URIs. You've got to do OAuth client stuff. There's a lot of steps to get the Google part working. But once you get it working and you put the integration, excuse me, you put the integration into Home Assistant, to me, it's been flawless. So if we look, well, let me go back to the dashboard. These are climate entities that are feeding these cards, and I haven't had any issues with it at all. So for Jeff, if you want to, and Raspberry got rid of his. I'm looking at the chat here. Hang on a second. If you want to switch over to this, for me, it's been rock solid. Whenever Nest went and talked about early, like last year sometime, removing the Works with Nest program and all the integrations, there was such an uproar that they decided to keep the Works with Nest devices grandfathered in, And so I didn't add anything new to my environment. As soon as you add something new to your environment, your ecosystem with Nest, you have to migrate it to Google. You can't add it after the fact. So I never did anything on that. And now, if I decided to add another device like a camera or something like that, it would be fine because then I could come through and I would be able to add it without worrying about migrating over because we have this. Now, I will say what's supported right now is thermostat devices. And let me turn on my mouse thing. I like my mouse thing. Mouse highlight app for those that ever want to use this. Oh, of course, I just closed it. Live TV, people. Live TV. All right, so it supports the thermostat devices, and it supports display, camera, and doorbell devices. So there is no Nest Protect, meaning the smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors are not part of this yet. I am hoping, and I have no inside information or insight into this, that at some point Google decides to add the protects into this so that we have a full ecosystem. In the meantime, I've done some work with the Open Z-Wave or Z-Wave combo smoke detectors that are Z-Wave. And I have one of those, and it works fine too. In fact, it's sitting on the desk over here, and if you just jumped on, we're self-cleaning our oven, and it's starting to smell pretty rough in here. So maybe that thermostat smoke detector will go off somewhere in the house. So still using the old Nest integration. Yeah. So I would say at some point you can get off of that. Works with Nest is still there. It's just for me, it's better to be on something that's going to be fully supported long term for Google stuff anyway. So I don't know, Justin, about the OZW change the EcoLink PIR so much. I don't know a lot about OpenZWave in that regard. As far as like you can modify the XML file for OpenZWave and do something with that. Why don't use Node-RED for automation? What is that? Combridge, what are you talking about specifically? I do have a lot of Node-RED stuff for automations. I also have blueprints for I also have regular automations as well. I will say that most of my automation is in Node-RED. So when we're talking about blueprints, it's just another way to do things here. And then this was when I did a lot of the Node-RED automations, it was before we had the ability to go here under configuration and then under automations and just kind of build out automations off of pretty much anything. So this is a UI based automation creator. And before we had to do everything in YAML, and some of the stuff was pretty complicated. So I did a lot of it in Node-RED. And I still like Node-RED. I like it a lot because I can go drag and drop things. And we've talked about Node-RED before. Let me just make sure. I'm going through the chats here and trying to keep up with all of this here. Why don't do not okay? OZW, got rid of Nest. Cool. Jeff's going to check out that thing. Yeah, Jeff, let me just tell you a couple things real quick. I know this is not the topic, but we're talking Home Assistant, so I'll talk about anything. And it's Q&A, right? When you're doing the Nest integration, make sure that you have the ability to connect to your Home Assistant instance while you're outside of your network. So that's important. Make sure you have, using DuckDNS add-on or something that points to your Home Assistant instance. It has to be accessible from the outside. It has to be SSL based, so you need to make sure you have a certificate of some sort, and DuckDNS will help you with that. DuckDNS uses Let's Encrypt, so it'll build that for you. Make sure that you have your authorized URI set in the steps. So if we look through the steps here and it talks about authorized URIs here, make sure that is correct for your authorized redirect URIs. That's going to be your external URL along with /auth/external/callback that goes at the end of the URL. What else have I heard problems with? When you're trying to do the initial integration, you have to do it outside of your network, or I don't know if this even works for most people, but you could do it inside your network as long as your external URL doesn't redirect you back into your internal. So what a lot of people have problems with is they will try to do that from inside their network. It will redirect them to the local IP instead of the DNS domain, the external domain that you put here, and then it will fail. So those are some big things to watch out for as you're doing this. I'm trying to think of anything else that I've heard. You have 1 hour once you start the process initially to get your token stuff squared away, because then the token and all the auth stuff expires after 1 hour. So if you're going to do step one and come back next day, you're going to have to probably start over. So make sure you set aside enough time to do all the steps from the get-go. And then once you get it all done, and you put your client ID and your secret and all that stuff into your configuration and then put the integration in, you can just set it and forget it. I use this thing all the time. Where'd it go? In fact, you can look, I'll show you on Grafana what I do with some of it. Blah, blah, blah. I plot I'm a data nerd, so I plot stuff all over the place here. So if we look at, where's it at? Nope, wrong one. If I look at environment, the garage door is open for those that didn't hear that. I plot all of my thermostat stuff. Oh, and one other thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with the thermostats is the thermostats will change when the temperature reading changes, or the sensed temperature changes. It will send an event over to the pub sub, the subscription that you are setting up in Nest, and it will update your devices in Home Assistant. You'll notice here that I have big swaths of time here, big gaps in time, reporting time. I don't know what the logic is that they use to report from the Nest thermostat over to the Google stuff, or the publication, the topic. I'm saying that all wrong, but it's okay to have big periods of time where nothing is showing up if you were to be graphing it or whatever else. If there's a significant amount change in temperature or status change, it will actually update on here. And I actually do one other thing. Let me see if it's working. I don't think the heater or air conditioner ran. Oh, it did. So I do plot the heating runtime and the air conditioning runtime on here. So anytime the status changes, the HVAC state changes, it'll change here and it plots it. So the point is, get it all working. If you don't see updates right away or immediately over time, it's just because there's nothing going on. My house is pretty well sealed, so the temperature doesn't change that much. All right, so we're way off topic, which is cool. So squirrels, appreciate all the input. We'll have to add this back to the project list. Yeah, and look around my videos, Jeff. There's videos for a bunch of different things that I've done in terms of the thermostats and just random things with that. So as you're building out your automations, there's a lot of good resources on the internet. Home Assistant has a lot of documentation. A lot of my videos, because I'm, promoting those, of course. And then, a lot of other folks have made videos, documentations, and contributed to all of this Home Assistant project stuff, home automation stuff. All right, let's talk about blueprints. What is a blueprint? Let me see if I can get back one level here. Back it up. Blueprints. There we go. Nope. Okay. What is a blueprint? So let's talk about a blueprint. How many of y'all have built an automation and you repeat it over and over and over again with the same type of work, but with different entities or different devices? Well, I have, and others have. And so what a blueprint does, and by the way, just full transparency, I have made a video already it'll publish out on Tuesday morning, Central Time, US time, on this same topic. So I'm going to talk about things kind of at a high level, show a few things, and then once, if you want to watch this again, or if you want to go ahead and watch the video that comes out on Tuesday, that's available too. So it's all about blueprints. So what I talk about is what a blueprint is. So it's an automation that allows you to set specific parts of the automation as inputs or as configurable inputs. So let's say I want to run automation to turn on a light or do something with motion sensing. You can select the motion sensor, and you can select what the motion sensor action does, like the entity or area or device, and then just build an automation off of that, and then do it again over and over again. And so blueprints are, I call them, to me, they're templates. So you have templates you can use to select specific types of entities and stuff. So at a very high level, that's what it is. And obviously, you can read all about everything here by going to the Home Assistant official documentation page. I've been playing with them. They require some. So Raspberry, what are you talking about? The blueprints? Yeah, blueprints. So if I were to rate blueprints right now, the way things are, I would say blueprints are kind of in the kind of like the mid level in terms of skill level. And the reason why is you have to get in there and you have to play with a file system. You have to play with YAML, and you have to kind of understand some of what you're doing here. So it's not programming per se, but it is a little bit of thinking through the process. So let me go to, now I've lost, where's the tutorial? Here we go. So the tutorial is really good. It talks about how to go through and build an automation or build a blueprint. And so I'm going to follow along a little bit with how the tutorial is here, so you can go back and read through this as well. The automation or blueprint I'm going to create today is very simple, and I talk about this in the video. Would I create a blueprint for this particular automation? Maybe. If I lived in the house that had, 50 doors and 800 lights, and I wanted to do different things for different doors, and I could just kind of choose it from the list, yeah. But if I have 2 entry doors in my house, and I want a light to turn on when someone opens the front entry door, is it worth a blueprint? Maybe not. But it's an easy way to get started and understand it. So to that end, I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of this here, and I'm going to do that directly in both my Visual Studio Code, and this is a standalone Visual Studio Code editor, and there is also an add-on for Visual Studio Code, and you can get that in the add-on store. So Supervisor, add-ons, and then you can go to the store and just search for Visual Studio Code. Now here's the thing that the reason I use, number one, the reason I use the standalone is, to me, it's faster. I have another computer that I use, and when I load Visual Studio Code on that computer on a Firefox browser, it doesn't load. I got to refresh it about a dozen times. So I have, it works great for most people. I have an issue with it, so my personal preference is to use a standalone Visual Studio Code editor, and I have a Samba Share link to my laptop here that allows me to open up this, open up basically a drive, and it has all my files and stuff in it. Yes, VS Code is pretty awesome. I love spam chat. That's my favorite. So we're going to use a little bit of Visual Studio Code today, and we're also going to do some stuff in the UI for Home Assistant. I need a better way to switch between my windows here. So the first thing I'm going to do is probably clean up something I did yesterday. So we're going to go into configuration and automations, because you need a working automation. So I'm going to delete a couple of these things that I was messing around with yesterday. This is not part of the demo. Close your eyes. I'm deleting some stuff here. All right, we're out. All right, so here we go. The first thing you want to do is you want to add an automation. So the reason you do that is you want to have the automation working, because you're going to use that as part of this. Over VS Code works well over SSH. How do you do that, Bradley? Don't know how to do that. I guess there's a connector for SSH. That probably is what you're talking about. I think I've done that before with editors on Linux terminals. I've used SSH to go directly into something. Squirrel. I love that squirrel thing. Hey, Raspy, I need Dr. Z's squirrel dance thing. And also I need a Stream Deck so I can push a button and make little squirrels and things pop up on the screen when I'm getting off topic. All right, so we're going to add automation. That's what we're doing. And you can use a blueprint right off the bat, but we're not going to, since we're building our blueprint. So are you SSHing in, Bradley, or are you actually using Visual Studio Code and the extension is in Visual Studio Code for SSH? Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I think I've done that before. I think I've used SSH as a connector to bring me back to some sort of visual editor. And I think actually Visual Studio Code is what I've used. It's been a while because I used to do this on servers and things. All right, so start with an empty automation. And I'm going to just call this, and here's what we're going to build today. We're going to build an automation that turns on a light when a door is open. And a door is a binary sensor in my case, and a light is a switch. So keep those things in mind as we go along here. By the way, the video, in order to keep the video length short, I don't talk as much on the video. Obviously, people will get bored of that. So what I'm getting here when I talk about this is pretty much what the video shows, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about stuff that I basically cut out of the video, a little more detail about things I learned also. The latter, the extension is in the code for Visual Studio. Okay, cool. Yeah, so there are options for connecting to Home Assistant using Visual Studio Code, other than just Samba Share or something like that. Can I use templates and blueprints? I think so. I'm going to show you something here, Raspberry, in a little bit, because again, this blueprint is super simple, but I have seen some pretty involved blueprints. And as a matter of fact, what you're talking about, so you can see here, they've used some, I mean, they're not templates, but they're logic. So I'm assuming if you can do logic, they can contain complex objects. So blueprints, what I'm assuming, if you're saying, can we use templates? I'm assuming you can, because you can use complex objects within your blueprints. All right, so we're going to build this automation. I'm going to I'm just going to call it some generic name, turn on light when door is open. Yep, so I guess so too. I haven't done it yet, but again, I'll show you here in a little bit. Description, I'll leave blank. Mode is single. This single thing here, this is all about automations, right? If you're familiar with automations, this is not going to be new stuff for you. I just want to have an automation to use to make sure that we're pulling in a working thing before we build a template or build a blueprint on it. All right, so my trigger is going to be a state, because remember what I said, for me, a door is a binary sensor. Either it's on or off, open or close, and they call it on or off. So what I want to do is find a door. So front door, I think it's front door garage entry. See, and it's called a binary sensor here. And then I want to go from off. So off means closed, means the binary sensor is closed, off, turned off, whatever, and it's going to change to on. I don't even know that that's necessary to do that, but you don't want the light turning on when you close the door. You want the light turning on when you open the door. So this helps it just to do that. And then you can, if you really want to, you can do something like for 2 minutes. If the door's open for 2 minutes, you could turn the light on, or you could flash a light, or you could do a sound or whatever. So those are useful things. Or I know a lot of folks do, like I said folks. A lot of people do automations based on a door being left open or a light being left on or whatever else. So you could add some additional trigger information here that would only fire this off if a certain other criteria was met. So I'm not going to put any other conditions or any other things here. I'm going to leave conditions blank as well. And so for actions, yes, you can. So the answer is yes. When I don't know the answer, I'm glad somebody else is able to answer it for me. So you can use templates. So the action is going to be a service call. So I'm going to call a service here, and my service is going to be a switch turn on. Remember now, the door or the light is not actually a light in the true sense of the light. It is a switch. It just happens to be a switch that's connected to a light. So we're going to turn on a switch, and the name of the entity is going to be, I always play with this one, so the playroom light. So we'll just turn on the playroom light. And that is the whole automation. So let's save the automation. I don't think you can see the save button because my big self is in the way. I'm hovering, look, I'm hovering. So the save button down here, right? So click save, and now we're done with that. If anybody's weirded out by the fact that I'm hovering, I can put myself back at the bottom. It messes me up. whatever. That's fun to do. Move yourself around on a live stream. Okay, the automation is built. So we're done. We are done in this for now. Now we're going to the blueprint section, but nothing is going to happen here yet. So the next step in, if we follow the tutorial, is first we build the automation. Now we create the blueprint file. Excuse me. I think that cleaning the oven, self-cleaning the oven and turning on to whatever gets to 600 degrees or whatever was a bad move before a live stream. Let me check Discord. I hear, oh, that's cool. The live stream stuff's working on Discord. So there is a live stream chat on Discord as well. If you have a specific question that I don't get to, or I seem to not answer it, go over to live stream questions on my Discord server. Or just, let me try this little thing. I think this may or may not work. If I type question here, does it actually go to live stream questions? No. Oh, yes, it does. So this works in some chat things. Oh, it doesn't actually do that. So anyway, if you're on my Discord server and I don't answer your question, jump into the live stream question section, and that's easier to spot those questions. So housekeeping. Okay, now we're going to create the blueprint file. So this is where we get into Visual Studio Code. So you can see I've kind of built one already. So I'm going to delete this one because I want to start fresh. Actually, you're wrong. I'm wrong. Not you're wrong. I'm wrong. So I have nothing here. So in this, under the config directory, and you'll see here, if you get into Visual Studio Code, you're going to see this whole tree of stuff. And Drive H is my Samba share for Home Assistant. And if you come down to config, there's 2 or 3 config sections, and I don't know why there's 2 or 3 config questions or sections here, but you're looking for specifically the blueprints directory. So if I collapse it up, you'll see it's not here. Well, it is. I don't know why it shows up 3 times. Somebody probably knows the answer to that. So if you do, let me know. I don't know if they're all the same. It may just be the same. I'm going to the bottommost directory, and I'm going to do it here. So this is a directory called Blueprints, and this is where all your blueprints are going to be stored. And what I did was I created a directory called Test Blueprints. So you can right-click on it here in Visual Studio Code and click on New Folder. And I will create a new one called YouTube Demo just for this purpose. So now I have a new directory called YouTube Demo, but there's no files in it. So now I need a file. So in order to do that, just as simple as the right click of the directory creation, you right click on it and you click on New File. And this one you want to kind of name it something that makes sense, because you're going to go put this out somewhere for others to potentially use. So I'm going to call this door open light on or something like that. I can't type. Door open light on demo.yaml. Make sure you have the YAML at the end of the file name or it won't work. So now you see I have a blank file. So we've created our file and our directory. And I think if we go over here now to our blueprints section, where is my file? If we go back over here to our blueprint section, we won't see anything here specifically. By the way, every time you make a change to your blueprints, you have to reload your automations. And here's oh yeah, it does. Look, so invalid blueprint required key not there. So I haven't done anything. Obviously, it's going to fail. So if you want to make sure that your Home Assistant is reading the right directory and finding a file there, you can verify it by doing this here. I realize that's kind of small, isn't it? So yep, it's data blueprint. We've done nothing, but the file is there. So that's a good start. Okay, so now the first step we need to do is create the metadata section for a blueprint. And a blueprint starts with blueprint. And then we give it a name, turn on light, door open. Keep in mind when you're building blueprints, if you plan on sharing these with the community, Be descriptive as you need to be. Make sure the names make sense. Make sure the descriptions make sense, so that if someone's reading your blueprint, they'll know what it is. So description is a field as well. And I'm going to say tutorial on creating blueprints for live stream. This wouldn't necessarily be what you would use, obviously, in the end, but for this purpose, I'll show you where that shows up here in a little bit. And then we have thanks. You're welcome on the Nest stuff here. Hammer cam. So hammer cam must be. Is that yep? Jeff is hammer cam on this. Okay, cool. All right. Squirrel. That probably sounded bad. All right, domain is going to be automation. The reason we're using domain as the automation as the domain is because we're going to create automations from that. Okay, so that's it. So now if you save this, and I use Control S to save it, if I go back over to this file or this UI and refresh it, I now have a new blueprint. A blueprint that does absolutely nothing and won't do anything if you create an automation on it. But it does tell you the syntax is correct. Now, one of the things you want to make sure you're doing as well is make sure that you are reloading your automations when you're doing some of this stuff after you build the automations. And I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, so now we have a blueprint file that does nothing except tell you it's a blueprint. So we need to define some input devices, some target devices, and that's what we're going to do in the next section. So for input, we want to the input's going to be the thing that makes our automation trigger, essentially. And we're not talking about the part where the automation is running, or the automation part of it. We're talking about defining some things that allow you to select what devices are going to cause the trigger. So in our case, we're going to want to be able to build an input that is the door selector, or a door selection, so that the device we're selecting that will trigger the automation will be the door. So that's what this section is. It's not the automation itself. The name we give to this, so we say door, and remember this is YAML, so everything requires correct spacing and syntax. So 2 spaces in off of this. Everything is 2 spaces. If it requires spacing, it's going to be 2 spaces indented. So door, nothing on this line, 2 spaces in. Name is going to be the entry door. And all these things are going to show up in the selector when we get to that point. And you'll see that in a few minutes. Name, and then, and I'm cheating, I'm reading off my notes from when I did this before because I don't have the memory to remember it all. So selector is the thing, again, that it's going to be a selector, what we're trying to get here. And then 2 more spaces, the entity. And then if you're not familiar with what a domain is in Home Assistant, and let me see if I can show that to you here. If I haven't wiped out my, see, I want developer tools. Let me see, C, click here, C, developer tools. I hit the C on the keyboard. This is so awesome about navigating around Home Assistant. I hit the C on the keyboard and it brought up this list of commands, and I can type developer tools and go right to developer tools without having to go all over the place for it. And I want to go to template. Yes, awesome, it's still here. So don't worry about this unless you just want to see it. You can go back and pause it and grab this. But basically what this does is tells me all of the domains that are inside my Home Assistant environment. So the domain obviously is a binary sensor. Cameras are a domain. It's like the highest level of a device category is a best way I can say what a domain is. So you can see here, you have lights, you have locks, media players, people or persons, scripts, sensors, and then it goes on and on, right? So it's the highest level of a device. So when we're building our automations, or our blueprints, we want to specify in this case, a domain, because we want to pick from the list of items that are binary sensors, because we know that the door is a binary sensor. However, we are going to get every binary sensor in our environment. And if I look at my environment, if I go to states, and let's see if I can filter this. Maybe. We'll see. I'm going to filter by binary sensor. Yeah, okay. So I don't know how many this is, but if I go through here, in my automation, when I build an automation off this blueprint, every one of these binary sensors is going to be an option to be selected from that drop-down list. And that's a lot, and that's too many. So one way you can solve this is to provide a device class. And so device class. Through trial and error, I figured out what device class this was. And let me see if I can, yeah, okay, cool. If you filter on this binary sensor, you can look through this device class for every one of these things. So if I look for that door, front garage door, I can see that this device class is opening. So I can filter down the number of available selections to this automation that we would create off the blueprint by specifying the device class as opening. Now, if I do filter on that now on this attribute section, and I remove this filter here, you'll see all the things that come back. So remember that long list we had. So now we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 items instead of whatever 100 or whatever it was on that list before. So now I'm only interested in doors anyway. I'm going to get windows and things because windows are part of the device class where you can open them or close them. So that was a long way to say, if you want to use a filter to filter down the number of selectable items, use the device class, and we'll call this one opening. So now I only get those, whatever it was, 6 or 7 items that were on this list right here as a selection. Okay, so now we have defined a device we would select for our trigger. So entry door is what we're going to call it. I mean, if you wanted to do Windows, you could rename this to whatever, opening device or entry device instead of entry door. Your choice. It's your painting. You can put a tree over there if you want to. Sorry, Bob Ross, that was very bad. All right, so this is the point where I say, do I have any questions? Are y'all still there? What else can I do over here? Let me take a pause for just a second and see what's happening. Oh, that's cool. So I was curious how to tell how many people were actually on the stream, and now I see. Okay, so we've done an input. Now what we want to do is we want to do an output or a target. So I'm going to, on this same level where I'm at now, where input is, underneath the blueprint metadata, and we're still in the metadata section essentially, I want to do a target switch. I'm going to call it target switch. It's really a light that I'm turning on, but it's in the switch domain. So that's why it's called a switch. What am I doing? Leo asked me what I'm doing. I'm building a blueprint. For those just joining, I'm building a blueprint. Blueprints, by the way, I forgot to mention, blueprints are available in Home Assistant version 2020.12 and above. If you're still on 0.1 something, 118 or whatever, you're going to have to upgrade to be able to use blueprints. Jeff is cleaning up his IP addresses. That is a worthwhile task. And let me tell you also that I need to go through Home Assistant and clean up my entities. Oh, hey, let me tell you all something. If you were at the conference, you probably heard about the Home Assistant Blue device. And that is, watch, I'm going to scroll myself right over to something else here. Let me close some of these things before I kill my computer and you all start seeing stuttering. Let me just figure out an easy way to get to this. There it is. Blue is actually a Odroid N2 Plus with eMCC. Is that a drive? Boy, that makes me sound dumb. I guess it's a drive. Storage. So eMMC storage, 128 gig. So at the conference, they announced this, and I'm just bringing this up because I wanted one of these. I ordered one of these from and there's vendors in different countries. So if you click on the buy thing now, you'll see different vendors or different distributors. And I bought one, and unfortunately, and I'm going to say the name wrong, Lao. Anyway, they asked, why don't you change the light switches to light entity? That's probably a good point. I should change the light switches to a light entity, the domain. I I don't know. Can you change the domain without destroying everything in a Z-Wave setup? I think the domain kind of has to stay what it was when it was picked up by Z-Wave, but I could be wrong. I'm not that brave yet. I could experiment, I guess, on a couple of light switches and make them lights instead of switches, and that would simplify things. And what they're asking on that, um, I'm bouncing everywhere. Sorry about that. This blue, I ordered one, and I may not get the blue. The difference between Odroid N2 Plus Blue and regular is that it kind of is a package deal, right? You get the eMMC. It has Home Assistant pre-installed on it, but my distributor says they have run out, and they've run out 2 or 3 times now. The pre-orders, the orders, and the other orders are all out of stock now, but they will send me a new one. So I may end up getting an Odroid without the blue case. And when I do that, the reason I'm going down this rabbit hole is Jeff said he's cleaning things up. I need to clean up my Home Assistant instance with a bunch of entities that I have not used in a while or got rid of, and starting fresh with like Home Assistant Blue or the Odroid would be a place to do that. All right, that was a side step here. You can't have a live stream without talking about other stuff, or it's just a class, right? It's just a lecture, so I'm happy to jump around, squirrel around a little bit, do other things. Okay, so what was I doing? We're building the target switch or light. Yeah, I got that same email from Ameridroid, um, and I've replied back. I want to know. I ordered that thing as soon as they announced it at the end of the conference. I ordered that, but the website broke, so I ordered it as soon as the website started working, which was a hour or two later. Their email makes me think that those that got through the initial order without breaking the website or without the broken website probably got the blue, and I did not. So they won't know, they say, until they get their stock in the warehouse in California. And if they do, then they will tell me, but I don't know if I want to wait for them to run out of the Odroids that everyone's going to jump on because they're not going to get the blue case. I want the performance from the Odroid. I want the power savings from the Odroid. I want to get off the little mini tower computer I'm using and put it on the dedicated device that the Odroid has. So if I don't get the blue case, there goes my unboxing video. But I can still do an Odroid. I can still use Odroid if I want to use it. So anyway, that was off on a tangent. Yeah, the blue case was definitely a limited edition. They're being promised more, but not till March. I don't want to wait till March. I want to get an Odroid now because those are pretty awesome looking. Jeff says, yeah, he's going to wait, so he just get a random box. Say, what's in this box? And be Christmas all over again. All right, so target switch. This is what we're doing. So we need a way to select what's going to happen to what device an action is going to happen to whenever this input device gets triggered. So for that, we're going to look at its state. But I'm in the wrong place. No, we're not. We're going to do a name first. A name. I'm going to call it light, and so that is what will show up in the selector, again, in the automation when you build an automation off of this. A description. Descriptions are optional, but they help whoever's creating an automation off of this blueprint to understand what you're trying to select here. So in my case, I'm going to say the light or lights that will be turned on. And then my selector is going to be target, and target is a special type of selector. Let me see if I can find that information here, because I read about this as well. The schema, that's not it. Selectors, let me go down and find target. We'll do it the fast way. Target selector. And you can read about the target selector. Oh, that's gross. Get rid of the highlighting. The target selector is a rather special selector. So it allows the user to select targeted entities, devices, or areas for the service calls. So the value of the input is going to contain a special target format that is accepted by the service calls. So you can filter, just like we're talking about, on entities or device properties. Areas are only selectable as a target if some of the entities to match those properties in the area. So if you have this light is in a, let's say upstairs or whatever area, you can pick the area and it'll act on that area. You can pick a device or you can pick an entity. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this and we're going to use a target selector, and that's what makes it special. So for target, we're just going to call that the type of selector. And then under the target, it's going to be an entity, just like we did above. And then the domain is going to be a switch. And this is where, you know, if I had, oh, no worries, Jeff, for the tangent. Like I said, if there's no interaction, I'm just doing a lecture. So I really enjoy the interaction, and that's what makes it fun. Unraid Docker. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just have not been brave enough to do that. Or maybe it's just I haven't had the time. We talk about at the conference the FAF, the WAF, the wife acceptance factor, the family acceptance factor, the whatever acceptance factor. This stuff just needs to work. And so I don't want to break it by running it. Now, if I bought the Blue, if I get the Blue, it's got Home Assistant pre-installed. I have a Raspberry Pi 4 where I could do some development work and play with things. I could do all kinds of, you know, there's all different ways to install this. Some are unsupported ways and some are not supported, or some are supported. So I don't know if Unraid and Docker is supported, is an actual supported installation. Okay, cool. Switch, we're doing a switch. So that's all we need here. And it'll allow you, because it's a target selector, you can actually select any area, any device, or any entity that is a switch, that contains a switch in the domain. There's probably a way to filter this down a little bit more with device class. Let's just take a quick look here, if that's the case. So if I look for a light, I don't know if it returns a device class for lights for switches. So let's look for play. Let me get rid of this filter. Playroom. Light. Yeah, there's no additional attributes that help me determine that this is a light. Now, when whoever it was, somebody asked me about this. I want to pronounce the name. I'm gonna say Liu. I'm just gonna say Liu. Why don't we switch it to entity? If I were to change this right now, and what he's talking about here is if I change this to light. Yeah, so it tells me light needs to stay the same. So Liu or Lu, if you have a way to switch this to a light type entity, let me know, because I don't know how to do that without it complaining about it. So these are all switches. These are in-wall switches, the GE switches that are the rocker switches. So Home Assistant, or at least Z-Wave, sees it as a switch entity or a switch domain, and I have to leave it that way for now. I would love to make them lights if I could do that. So anyway, that's why we are using switch here instead of light, because all my rocker switches in the wall come back as switch under the switch domain. Okay, now we've built the blueprint. Let's save it. And you can take a quick moment here and you can come back over to the blueprints section. And again, hit the C key, blueprints, navigate to blueprints. Oh, you don't know how much I love that right there. And you can also find entities. If you hit the E key, I could look for an entity as well, although it's a little slower because there's a lot more to load. So now I'm looking for specific entities here as well. That's interesting. So this is a light. I wonder if this is the same. Let's just see what this is. Yeah, it's unavailable. Okay, anyway, so if you reload this page now, you should be able to have, you should have no errors. It should just give you, it still doesn't do anything, the blueprint, but at least it should have no errors. So this looks fine. So we can continue on. Now, the reason we created the automation earlier Um, you have to go to customization and make them light entities, but then you'd have to change everything associated. Yeah, so maybe that is a thing for going to like the Odroid or the Blue or whatever I'm going to get, is when I go rebuild it, is I figure out how to change these things um, to light entities. Um, so let's see. Let's see. I run a VM with Debian with HA installed all the way, and when I upgrade, I just do a VM snapshot. If anyone, just roll back. Don't worry, there'll be another tangent in a later stream when I finally get caught up on working with blueprints. Excited to learn about this. Be able to share. Yep. Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, it's a live stream. It's for fun, right? When I make the targeted videos, the videos about what I'm talking about, I try to get through those because those are people search for those for very specific reasons, or maybe you just watch them because you like my videos. Yeah, hit that like button. So going to live streams is kind of fun to play around. Okay, so we have built this is all the metadata section for a blueprint. Now we need to start doing some stuff. So I built that automation earlier, and that automation resides in an automation folder in Home Assistant. So let me find the automation folder, and it's down here under your config, where all your config stuff is. These are all my different YAML files. So I have an automations YAML file, and look, it's already open. I'm going to close it and reopen it because I created that new automation. So if I click on automations YAML, open it up, at the very bottom, typically, of the file, you will see the automation that you just created. In this case, that's true. The ID number doesn't matter. The alias description doesn't matter for me. What matters is this part here where we start the trigger. So I'm going to copy this whole thing over. So Control C or your favorite, UI copy paste, and I'm going to go back over to my. I need to close this before I get confused, right? Don't save it. Oh wait, cancel. Yeah, I want to close this one. I'm not going to save it. So I'm going to go back over to my blueprint file, and I'm going to paste this in. And you have to be careful where you put this, and I learned this the hard way. This metadata section is on the toppest level of the YAML tree, if you will. And so all the metadata stuff stays under the blueprint section. So if I collapse this now, everything should be gone because it's under the blueprint metadata section. When you add your automation part of this blueprint, you're going to want it on the same level as blueprint. So when I collapse this now, I should still have this here, which I do. If I collapse this one, all of it goes away. But we're going to do some work here. So I'm going to leave the blueprint part of it, the metadata part of it, collapsed up here for a few minutes. And then I'm going to do some work here. In its form here, this isn't going to work the way it is. Number one, the action is under trigger, and the action needs to be its own top level section. So now if we move that over and we do this, now action is by itself, which we want it to be. Also, I'm going to start removing just some stuff here that we don't need. I don't have any conditions, and I don't have any data. So let's just get rid of these things because they're just extra things in the way. So now I've gotten rid of data. And actually I'll open this up because we'll need to see something here. So I have trigger, and I have platform is the state. The entity ID is specified in here. Well, we don't want to do that because that doesn't do us any good. Toppest. That's a word I need to use. Toppest. Nice. We don't want to specify or hard code in an entity ID. So this is the part that makes this blueprint reusable, is you are now going to specify an input entity ID based on what you did up here. And so your input here is your door and your target switch are your two inputs. And so for me, my input for the door is called door. So whenever you put this in the blueprint and you build an automation, anything in the binary sensor domain with a device class of opening is going to be a selectable item because you're saying that anything here is input from this criteria. Does that make sense? That's the best way I can say it for now, so we'll just go with it. When you see an automation built from a blueprint, it might make more sense. All right, so under action, and also I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So I don't know if this will cause a problem. Typically, it did for me before, where you have this when you're in. I don't know what this is called, the dash. Somebody tell me what the dash is called. When you put the dash here, it makes it think it's a dictionary value or something. I forget. So I'm going to remove the dash. I'm just going to backspace. So I'm lined up here, 2 spaces indented, and I'm going to bring these all over. And in Visual Studio Code, if you hit your control key and your left bracket with a highlighted block of text, it'll bring it all over for you at once. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to bring this in. And I'm also going to bring this. Oh, I'm going to change this too. So again, we don't want to hard code anything in our blueprints because we want people that use them to be able to select what we're doing. So our action section, our entity ID, again, is going to be an input from above. And that input is going to be this criteria. So it's going to be something from the domain, switch domain. So, and the name of it, we called it was target switch up here. So the input's going to be target switch. So now, whenever you select, when you build an automation from this blueprint, you're going to select the target area. And because you're using target as a special selector, anything that has the switch domain in it, an area, a device, or an entity will show up as a selectable. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to make sure we're indented correctly. And I'm going to bring this mode over as well. I don't know that mode is necessary here, but I'm going to leave it in case. But you want mode to be on its own line as well. Unless I'm wrong, and we'll find out in a minute. Okay, so this is a super simple blueprint. You've just created, or you've watched me create, a blueprint. So you've got your blueprint metadata stuff up at the top. So what it is, what input device is going to cause something to happen, and what thing is going to be the thing that is acted on because the thing above happened. And then your automation is just the simple turn on a light, switch turn on, if this trigger criteria is gone from off to on. All right, so I'm going to save it, and we'll see if it creates an error. Sorry if it has an error. Hopefully it doesn't. Let's go over here to reload the page. And if it has an error, we'll fix it. In fact, I did that in my video. I think I messed it up and I went back and fixed it, unless I edited all that out. So no errors in the file itself. So we have now created a blueprint. So what do you do with a blueprint? Well, let's go use the blueprint. And again, I can't stress enough how simple this is. There are ways to, so Lucky says the dash indicates the item is a member of a list. That's right. So I don't need that. I don't know if it would hurt to be there. I think it does. Let's just, since we're all learning together, let's just put it back in for this one entity. And let me refresh the page. Oops. I need 2 spaces here. This needs to line up with the item above it. So, oops, start over. Let me come right over here to the edge and let's move it over. Boom, boom. Now it's gone too far. All right, quit highlighting it. Why is it highlighted? Let me back up and go this way. This is longer test than I wanted. All right, we're gonna save it now. Let's refresh here and see if we get an error about dictionary levels or something. No. Okay, so either way, since we don't have a list of items here, I'm just gonna do what I said before. We're just gonna back it up here, 2 spaces, and let me do this. Let me make an error. And I want to show you what the error, it kind of looked like before when we had no blueprint stuff in here. If you do something wrong in your YAML, you should get an error on this page. Oh, things like to make me a liar on live TV. So I didn't get an error. I don't know why. This probably won't work. One thing I will do is blueprints are under the automation section. I'm just going to reload these as a course of, or just as a good thing to do. Just see what happens. By the way, if you hit that C key again, and you want to reload your automations directly from here without having to go over to the automation screen and hit reload and do all that other stuff, you can click it here directly. And you actually need to do that when you build the automation out. Okay, here we go. So I reloaded automations, and now it's telling me that it's failed to load. The mapping values are not allowed on line 24, column 15. So if we go over here to line 24, column 15, it's exactly what the problem is. It's taking and mapping these entity ID and all this stuff under platform, and that's not where it belongs. So we'll just bring this back over where it belongs, save it. Let me reload the automations. Reload automations. Reload automations. Why is this not working? Did I hit the wrong key? Automations. Reload automations. There we go. Now refreshing. Should have no errors. Oh. So now we are got ordered light, description of the lights that will be turned on. Invalid extra keys not allowed at data. So it doesn't tell me what line it is, I don't think. So I have messed it up. So let me just go through and make sure what we're doing here is correct. So all of our blueprint stuff is on the correct line. Our trigger stuff is on its own line. Our action stuff is on its own line. So let me just read the error again. This is good because I like having errors because it helps us all learn what might be going on here. Target switch, got order, dictionary, name, light, description, the light. So target switch. Did I do something wrong here? Let me just double check. Target switch, name, light, description, selector, target, entity, domain. And then if I look down here, platform, state, entity ID. And when you're working with YAML, this is sometimes, unfortunately, what you have to do is you have to go through and make sure everything is in the right place, all the spacing is correct, and everything is where it belongs. Let me just go through here again. If anybody sees, yeah, error's too long, right? In the log, you can see it. Which log are we talking about? Yeah, I need to find out where this actual thing is. But extra keys not allowed at blueprint target switch. Got ordered. So it's telling me it's in this section here under target switch. Got ordered dictionary, name, light, description. So, oh, because I spelled description wrong. Okay. See, so I do a little bit of programming. I'm not a developer by any means, but I do a little bit of stuff. And always it's the semicolon at the end of the line that gets me. So in this case, it looks like it was that. So let me reload the automations again. Bring me my shortcuts. Reload automations. Refresh the page. Oh, come on, work. Oh my gosh, really? So it still doesn't like that. Did I spell description wrong somewhere else? So name is light. And the error is too long, HA log. So let me go over to see if I can find that easily without navigating all over the place. Navigate to logs. So 1109. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload it now so I know that I'm seeing a valid log entry here. Let me refresh the logs. 1110. Invalid config for failed to load blueprint, able to find blueprints. All right, well, that's not related to our thing. That's related to the fact that I deleted a blueprint without deleting it properly. So it's trying to find this file, and that doesn't matter. So back over to blueprints, because I don't see the actual error here. This is what is hanging me up also, was being, so I did this in the video and it worked. And I'm actually using the same output from the video, the same, the same blueprint. So let me go back over to blueprints and let's see what the issue is. I'm going to hard refresh this screen. Oh, and by the way, you get notifications here as well. So then it takes you to the logs. So that's the other way to do it. So back over to blueprints. And then it says invalid proof, extra keys are not allowed. Data, blueprint, target switch, got ordered dictionary. So why do I have an ordered dictionary at target switch? Did I not indent this right? It's typically something like that is not, oh, I'm done. So I sit here and I harp on the, I harp on this, and I thought about this a minute ago. Like, why am I doing input here under target switch and input is not, and this is not under its own thing. This needs to be under the input section. So let's move it over. So see door and target switch. These are names of inputs. They should all be under the input section. So now if I collapse this, there's our input. Everything's under input. So let's save it. That was the problem. All these inputs that you're doing here, input door, input. So if you have a bunch of inputs, you want to have all of them under the input section of the file. All right. So now let's reload automations. Reload automations. And then let's do a refresh. Okay. Yay. Woohoo. All right. So we have a blueprint file with an automation in it. So that is how you build a simple blueprint. Now let's talk about what we do with it. Let's build an automation from it. And you'll see all these things come together now. So we have the light. Turn on light door open is the blueprint we created. So now let's create an automation from that. And this is the name that the blueprint is called. I would change this to something to be more specific to what you're actually doing with it. You can reuse the blueprint. It doesn't change the name of the blueprint. It changes the name of the automation. So I'm going to say open, turn on playroom light when entry door, or let's just say front door open. I mean, you can call this whatever. Open. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, and remember when we talked about the description up here, turn on light, door open. So that was what this was up here. That's the name of the blueprint. And you could actually choose other blueprints if you wanted to. And then the description. So whatever you put in this little description section right here is going to be what shows right here. So make that as descriptive as you need to in order for someone to understand what this blueprint is actually for. All right, so now what we do is we created these two inputs as our metadata. And so when we went down here and we said input door, we're looking at binary sensors with a class of opening. And so when you choose entry door, and again, entry door is the name here. If you change this to something else, that is what's going to appear right here. So again, when you're building out blueprints and you want somebody who has no idea what the blueprint, or it isn't the person that built the blueprint, you want them to understand what it's for, make sure you're as descriptive as you need to in each of these sections so they know specifically what they're trying to do with it. So I'm going to choose, again, you see that we have, and look, the windows are open because for those that came in late today, right now we're self-cleaning the oven and it smells really bad. So we have windows open. I think this is the first time those windows have been open in a very long time. So it's good to know the sensors still work. Squirrel. Okay, so we have these things. And remember we had that list of binary sensors that was like 100 items. But because we use device class opening, we're only going to get the ones here, and it limits our list, which is fantastic. So I want to do the front garage door entry. Now, see what I talked about earlier about this section right here where we're talking about using a target? as our special selector. This allows anything that has an area, anything that has a switch type domain item in it to be available here. So I could pick an area, and I don't have any areas with a switch specifically. And the reason why is because I haven't put any switches. I haven't put switches in areas. I could pick a device. So all of these devices show up as devices that you can choose that are a switch type thing, and then or an entity, which is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to call this Playroom Light. And you could actually pick more than one entity here. So if I wanted to turn on the kitchen counter as well as the playroom when that front door is open, then I can specify both of those. And there's really nothing else here. So yes, I know I'm blocking the save button. There's a save button over here. Click on save. And if you go to automations now, you now see that you have an automation for turning on the light when the door is open. Yes, I am in Texas in December. It feels nice outside finally. Well, it's supposed to be above seasonal temperatures today. It was 30 degrees, 32 degrees, almost freezing this morning Fahrenheit. But because the humidity is low and it's dry outside, it's going to heat up pretty fast. We'll be in the low 70s today or upper 60s, which is just about perfect for me. Just about perfect. Okay, so that is the very basic part of doing this. Now, what do you do with this stuff once you've built your own? You can use it here. You can keep these blueprints all to yourself. If you have a complex thing that you do over and over again, but you just want to change the entities or change the device that it outputs to or acts on, you can build this blueprint. You can also share this, and one of the ways I do that is. And they talk about this in the tutorial, right? You can come down here and read about it. You can share it on the Blueprint Exchange, or you can do informal sharing under GitHub Gists. So if I go to my gist, I can create a new gist here. Gist, how do you say it? 12 degrees Celsius. Okay, Google, what is 12 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
12 degrees Celsius is equal to 53.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
53.6.
You can always ask me to play your favorite live radio station too.
So how come when I ask the device that to change the temperature, it wants to recommend that I play a favorite radio station? No, thank you. Okay, sorry about that. We're getting off. So 50 something degrees. That's not too bad. I don't mind that either. If I can go outside and put a coat on, then minus 12C. Maybe not. There are times when I do like bundling up in the house, watching a movie, maybe drinking some coffee or whatever. Just the gist of it. Thanks, Cecil. Yes, I thought it was gist, but pecan, tomato, trunk, boot, flat, apartment. You see where I'm going with that? All right, so I don't know what minus 12 is. I don't even think about that. That's cold. Where are you at where it's minus 12? Are you in the US? Zippy the zap? Okay. Down here at the bottom of this file, it talks about how you're going to give a blueprint. Give it a name. So I'm just going to call this YouTube blueprint demo. YouTube. How do you spell it? YouTube blueprint demo. Okay. The file name is important. Again, you want it to have the YAML extension. So I'm going to say I probably have this twice or 3 times. I'm going to have to change the name again. Lights. Lights on when door open .yaml. You have to have the YAML extension or it won't be able to import it. And then you go over to your code, and I'm going to do a Control A for select all, Control C for copy, and I'm going to paste it into my gist. And there's my entire blueprint in a gist. Now it defaults here to create secret gist. You want to make this public if you're going to share it with other people. And it's hiding at the bottom of my screen. create public. And when you click on this link, or when you click on this button, it's going to take you over to the gist with the proper URL. So let me go do a little housekeeping here real quick. No, never mind, I'll leave it. So now you have this URL here. If you want to share it with your friends and not necessarily put it out in the public domain on the exchange, because let me tell you, north of Canada, like as in not Canada, but north of Canada, that is cold. Oh, you know what? Let me apologize to everybody that has a device, a smart speaker that just heard me trigger their smart speaker. I should have used, sorry about that. You know, it's interesting too, when they do that on like big sporting events where they say the name of the device on a sporting event or whatever, at least on the Alexa side, see how I did that, Alexa? That device knows that if it hears the activation word from thousands of devices that are watching a sporting or like a commercial, and it hears it all at once, it'll know that, and it does some algorithm in the background. It'll know that that came from a commercial and not locally. I guess voice recognition probably does that too. So it doesn't trigger the device because it knows that it was heard on a whole bunch of them all at once, and the algorithm somehow knows that that was not normal, and it doesn't activate it. So that's kind of cool. I learned that a few years ago. Northern Quebec. Yeah, that's cold up there. Cold. -12. Wow. Okay, here's the URL. You have this URL. So if you want to share this with your friends and family or whoever, and you say, just go get my blueprint for whatever, you can come back over here and you can import. Let me hover. I'm going to hover. Hover. You can import this blueprint right here by clicking on it. You can paste the URL of the blueprint and you can preview it first before you import it. So again, we talked about the name of the blueprint, the description. And so your description is going to show here before you import it. And then the blueprint path. It's going to create a folder called Mostlychris if it doesn't exist. And then the name of the file, the YAML file that you are importing. And so if I click on this, now I can look at what's in here first. If you want to just inspect it before you import it, you can look through all of it. And you can import it by clicking the import button here. So now you see, and I have a duplicate, right? But I have a duplicate in a different directory. So it created this, or imported this blueprint from a gist that I got from the internet. Let's assume it was somebody else's. It imported it. Now, if you go over here and you look in Visual Studio Code, you should have a directory, and I do. I'm going to refresh this first. You'll see that I have a directory with the new file, lights on when door opened YAML, which is the gist. Where's my gist? I don't know where my gist is. Yeah. Lights on when door opened.yaml. Lights on when door opened.yaml. You can see that up here better. So it imported it. So that's one way to do that. You can take this over to the hover mode off. Slide over to the left mode on, or right, whatever direction it is. You can take this also and you can put it on the community exchange. So come on, get back over to that thing. And you can see it down here. There is a blueprint exchange where and you'll see a bunch of these, and there's rules for posting and whatnot. You can read all about that. And I think it's on that page. So if I click here, it should take me over to the exchange. Wait for it. Wait for it. I was running at 100% CPU. I hope I wasn't chopping out on all those things I just did. Okay, so this is the Blueprints Exchange. They're reusable automations, which we talked about, easily shared. There are a bunch of them on here already. And again, you can import any of these. I did one here. Let me find it again. By the way, I did see yesterday, or when I was making the video, there was a thing on here about opening a door and turning on a light. So there was a blueprint created for that, I think. Here's one: toggle device after a period of time, switch scenes depending on media state, Twitch stream, turn on light. So if there's a Twitch streaming, you can have a light come on. all kinds of stuff that people have contributed here. And I'm looking for one that I used that was really, it was, oh, here it is, door sensor, turn light off. That's probably close to what we did today. But there's one here that was pretty involved. Maybe some of these others are. Let me see if I can find it. Do I have it over here still? No. By the way, when you install Home Assistant 2012.12, the zone notification and the motion activated light are built in already as blueprints. So if you are curious about how to do something, you can come over here to the Home Assistant directory under blueprints and look at these and just kind of see what they are. And here's an example of one that's a little more complicated. So you have a person, a zone, and a notify device. So 3 different input entities. Your trigger, this is all your automation stuff. So here are, and you asked about templates. Here is your template inside of a blueprint. So if you can do templates within automations, you can do the same thing within the blueprints. And so this stuff is what acts on the above input selectors. Motion light's another one that comes with it. It has some, it only has a couple of things. This one's cool. It has a wait time in it. So it has a different type of selector. And speaking of selectors, if you want to know what selectors you can use in Home Assistant, these are all the different types of selectors. Again, on the documentation, you can read through this. So actions, areas, booleans, time selector is interesting. You can select a time window. So you can have a light turn on at a specific time, and you can choose that specific time through a selector. So you would just do the input as time. And so it talks about all the different inputs and all the specific things you can do, the configuration variables with those inputs. And so anyway, we're talking about, I was going to find one of these blueprints. If we go to blueprints, where's my blueprint store? Here we go. I was looking for a really complicated one, but maybe we don't need one. I'll just pick one here. Motion aware lights based on luminance sensor by not 70 option. That was a lot of words. Light dark theme switcher, low battery cloud, TTS notifiers. This would be interesting. Let's see what this one is. It's a TTS notification. Yeah, it has a lot of different inputs. So this there's a lot of stuff in here, right? So let's import this one. I'll just show you when we talk about what you can do with these blueprints. So I'm going to import another blueprint. It's going to be this one off of the community or the exchange. We can preview it. The low battery cloud TTS notification. It will send a cloud TTS message when a device battery is low. It will create this directory tim001 and that particular file, and then we can look at the contents here. And it's pretty involved. So let's import this one. And let's create we're not going to create an automation, but I will show you what it does. So this is again, ours was pretty simple, right? Or the one I created was pretty simple. But look what you can do. You can choose a device that has a battery level. So he has filtered all devices that contain a battery. And he does that by this. Let me look at the file, refresh. This was Tim something, right? So if we refresh this, we should have an automation or blueprint file by Tim. Here we go. And this one. So his domain is sensor, but his device class is battery. So he's only showing us, where in the world did my thing go again? Let me find it. There it is. Device class is just batteries. That's how he's filtering. And then a media player. So he's choosing the media player. So all these are media players. So in here, he looks at domain media player. So only media players are selectable. Then you've got volume options. You've got a message, so a thing to say. Then you've got the new Nabu Casa stuff. You can specify gender and language as well. So these are optional. It'll default to whatever it is. And then whatever the battery level is. So he's got some sliders involved in here too. So your inputs are selector is a number with a slider bar for the volume level, and then somewhere else was a slider. And then of course he has all this other information in here for message, gender, language, all these default selecting things. So you can really get involved with the templates. Can you imagine writing this automation every time you wanted to do something with it? You can take this automation and do something a little bit different. Like for example, if you want Cloud TTS to say something, if let's say the door's left open, you could modify this a little bit and create your own, but then you use it every time you want to do it. You don't have to rewrite all of this stuff every single time. That's where blueprints come in. Two things I think they're the best thing about blueprints. Number one, they're reusable. So you're building something, you can just select things and just create automations off. That's one. Two, they're shareable. And that's probably the biggest thing. So there's always this thing where, hey, I built this cool thing, and then someone pastes their code in like Ubuntu Pastebin or something or wherever. Now you can create an automate or a blueprint off of it, and then share it with whoever you want to share, either publicly on the exchange or put a link for this. Let me put that in the chat thing here. Oh, not there. Here. Here's the link for the one I'm looking at here. Anyway, so you can share with your friends, your family, the exchange publicly. You can reuse them, and this allows us to be more. How am I trying to say this? It gives us the ability, as Home Assistant, we're tinkerers. Most of us are tinkerers. We like playing with this stuff, but it's getting to the point where I think, for me, I think we're maturing along here with Home Assistant, that it's going to be a lot more consumer friendly when we have the ability to just go in here and pull an automation or a blueprint and say, build this thing for me. I want this thing to happen. And someone out there has already done it. You just import it, select your entities, and off you go. So I think this takes us another step towards making this as user friendly as possible for people who don't necessarily do code or stuff like that. So that's my spiel on blueprints. Again, I'm going to have the video's already up. I just need to publish it. It'll be published on Tuesday. It basically goes through creating what I just did, more concisely with less talking. And so you can watch that. Please watch it. I'd love to see a lot of views on that. And then use it as a reference point, right? Rather than sitting here through an hour and a half or whatever live stream, you can go straight into that video and get the stuff you need. Questions on anything else? I know we never answered, and let me go through chat. I don't think I missed anything. Bloop, doo, 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 doo. And by the way, I appreciate those that are subscribing on Twitch. That's kind of cool. I think this gives new basic people quickly. Yeah, that's right, Jeff. So people can learn things. They can do things. Well, number one, they can get up and running quickly, like you said, right? Without having to learn without the big learning curve. But I mean, for me, I reverse engineer a lot of things. So if I'm looking at this right here, I can go through and I can understand this. I mean, I may not have the time or the inclination to go through and build something from scratch, but now I can say, hey, look, this is a great idea. And like I said, you can take and extend this, build your own blueprint for something different. So I want the TTS thing to say something when something happens. Well, this is a battery level. All the media player stuff is all the same, right? You don't want to change that, but let's say you want to change the device type. I want a door's left open for 10 minutes. I want it to announce. So all you have to do is change the input device to a binary sensor, and then all the other stuff that you do on here, you do that. You just leave it alone. Short of like the battery, you don't say battery level, you would say doors open, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So those that want to get started in more advanced automations can use these blueprints to kind of start as a starting point and build things on their own. So that's kind of a cool thing to do as well with the learning curve piece of it. So anyway, what other questions do we have today, or does anybody have, or do we have any questions? Any comments? Any random stuff? For those SpaceX fans, they landed another booster yesterday. I don't know what that makes, like 100 times or whatever. Do I have a preference between creating a blueprint automation versus using something like Node-RED? Seems like it's just more based on how you interact. So a couple things with Node-RED. Number one, now with the hardware that we're talking about earlier, what is that thing called? The Odroid. Um, yeah, I'm going to leave. I don't want to. I'm not going to use this automation today. I don't have. Well, I do have battery stuff, but Node-RED. Let's go to Node-RED. So I really enjoy Node-RED. I love playing with it because it visually helps me understand what my automations are doing. But look at what it's doing here. I'm on a laptop here. Well, maybe this is a bad example. Node-RED requires a little bit more horsepower on whatever device you're running it on. Um, well, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. With Node-RED, I was able to do things that I couldn't do in automation without writing a bunch of complicated YAML. The automation stuff has come a long way in Home Assistant. Whenever since I started doing this stuff, so I could take some of my more simple Node-RED stuff and put it into just straight up automations. I think this is 173% personal preference for the most part. So 99.9% of the time, it's 173% personal preference. Let that sink in. Because some people want to go straight up YAML, straight up native Home Assistant, so they're not relying on the Node-RED. Node-RED now is an integration or is an add-on for Home Assistant. So it's all, to me, all of this is part of the same ecosystem. I have one device running Node-RED, Grafana, Influx, AdGuard, HA, Supervisor, and all this stuff is all running together as one, to me, one big entity or one big ecosystem. If I were to divulge or divest myself of some of Node-RED or something, I would and just run HA by itself, then I would probably stick with just the HA stuff. Um, so, but I like this. I like the fact, and I know it's all in the same device. And so, really, when I do a snapshot, by the way, if you're not doing snapshots, you ought to do that. You ought to back up your stuff. I can't stress the importance of backing this stuff up. So when I back it up, my Node-RED's backed up, my Influx, my Grafana, everything's backed up as a single thing. If I were trying to conserve resources, conserve storage space, conserve writing like to an SD card, I would probably run it just strictly on HA. So to me, my preference is a little bit of both, but probably 90% Node-RED because that's where I put most of my automations. And I look like a page like this. And I have all this stuff going on with lighting based on sunset stuff, based on time of day. Right now, my holiday lights come on, and then they shut off after 10 minutes because I have an issue with my lights not coming fully on until they're fully warmed up. So I turn them on, let them warm up, shut them off for 10 seconds, which you see here, and then they come back on after 10 seconds and they're fully warmed up. The controller's going and everything else. So this helps me visualize that kind of stuff, and it would be a little bit harder than sorry, I'm reading the chat here and I got distracted. A little bit harder maybe in the automation. So I like Node-RED. If preference wise, I'm gonna say Node-RED is my thing here. But and I almost, when I went from YAML to Node-RED, I felt a little dirty. I felt less like a purist in terms of this. But I think if I want to do something and I have 2 minutes to do it, I can come to Node-RED, slap in a couple of these nodes, wire them together, and then off we go. Let me see if I have a case in point here. Did I do something like that recently? I don't know. I was playing with something and I came into Node-RED and I just threw it together really fast and I was done with it. So that was a long answer to I like Node-RED. I prefer Node-RED for a lot of things, but I also, for simple things might use the automations. Now, the final point to that is if you're splitting your automations between HA and Node-RED, now you got two places to look for stuff. So it's almost, I want to pick Node-RED as my primary thing, and then automations and HA just as a simple deal, without having to look in two places for an automation that might be misfiring or whatever. Yes, Zippy, you are correct about putting things outside of the Node-RED for backups, and I will show you something here. So for add-ons, supervisor add-ons, I have, where is it? Samba backup. I back up my Samba. I back up my snapshots 3 times or once a day. I keep 3 backups, and they are stored on my NAS for backups. So I run it. I have had a failure once or twice, not in a long time, but once or twice, especially when I was on the Raspberry Pi, and I didn't have a backup. And oh, let's talk about the pain. Let's talk about the pain now of all the stuff I have added since then and how painful it would be. There is also this Google Drive backup that works fantastic as well. For me, I have the default Google backup plan or whatever, so I get 15 gig of space for everything. So one of my snapshots, I think, is a couple gig because I back it all up. I want the whole thing. I want to be able to just pull that back up and restore everything if I blow up a box or something. So it eats up space. So the point is, yeah, make sure you back up. Either use Samba or Google Drive. There's also Dropbox backup. I use that for a while. That works fantastic. All this works good. The thing about Samba for me is I'm backing up internally on my network. I go straight from my HA server to my NAS. Anything else, like say you're backing up a gig worth of data per night, you're going to have to shoot that out to either Google or what did I just say? Dropbox or whatever. So you're having to send it out on your internet connection. And if you're on a rate limited or capped internet connection for whatever reason, you might have some issues there. So again, preference. There are 1,000 ways to do things. Well, there's a bunch of ways to do things, right? So a lot of it comes down to preference and logistics, or like I said, internet caps or whatever you have the thing is. So yeah, if you don't learn anything from what I just said, other than the fact that you need backups. And those getting new into Home Assistant, you might not think it's a big deal right now because you're only doing a couple things, but think about the time you put in to make those things work. And then try to remember how you did it 6 months from now when you blow something up or something fails. So backups, and then backups. I have a video on backups. Please watch that video and it will talk about all of this. It demonstrates the Samba and it demonstrates the Google Drive backup. Not so much Dropbox, but those two are demoed on the video. So watch that if you feel like it. I snapshot my VM daily and back up the snapshot on my NAS. Yep. That is a good process. All right, so let's go a few minutes here. Do I run HA on virtual Docker or on a dedicated device? That is a chat and live stream questions. And I run HA on a mini tower PC using the supervised version of HA with Docker, which is Docker based. It is a dedicated device. It's just a tower PC that I run that on. And what else? I'm going to be moving that to the Odroid, whether I get the Odroid Blue or just the regular Odroid. I'm going to move it over to that for couple reasons. One, I want to play with it. So I'll make 3 reasons. One, I want to play with it, the Odroid. Number 2, I like the idea of a low power dedicated device for Home Assistant. And 3, that little mini tower PC has a very loud hard drive in it. It just chatter all the time. In fact, I've turned the history off in Home Assistant. The only logging I do for anything is into InfluxDB and Grafana to view in Grafana. If I want a historical view of something on my dashboard, if I click on my dashboard here, you'll notice, or click on a device, you'll notice that I don't get, like let's say the temperature. Look at that, 65. Man, that's nice outside. I don't get any graphs or anything here because my history is turned off. Partly because if I'm storing at Grafana or Influx, I don't really need the history here. The other thing is that drive chatters all the time, and I'm afraid that thing's going to just blow up one day. I pulled that little tower PC out of the attic. It was doing some work in the attic where it gets about 120 degrees, and I put it down where I'm running it now, and it just runs all the time. And I'm afraid it's going to go away at some point with that drive chattering. And plus, it's loud and annoying. So, wow, that really was a long answer. I am doing this on a mini tower PC that I'm going to switch to Odroid as soon as I get an Odroid. All right, so should make a video on the steps to install HA on an Odroid. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's probably a good idea. A good reason to have the non-blue version that is pre-installed. Yeah, I see a discussion here about the VM snapshots for not using for backup. Yeah, in my day job, I tend to work with some folks too that do a lot of storage type work, and there's a whole discussion about backups and what really are backups and what aren't backups. Yeah, so I'm gonna probably put together. The idea was to unbox the Blue on video, make a video about unboxing and doing some stuff with it. But if I don't get the Blue, I may just unbox an Odroid with the same hardware configuration anyway, and do an install with that. All right. So, any other questions, comments? I'm going to wrap this up here in about 5 minutes or less and get on with some family stuff. Um, for me, being able to do this is amazing when I have family stuff going on as well, and um, I don't know if my family ever watches my videos, probably not, but if they are, thank you for letting me do this. I really appreciate the time. And then I hit I didn't even mention this. I hit 1,000 subscribers this weekend, which it's kind of like a milestone. It's the first step it's the first step of the rest of your life. Really, no, it's a pretty big milestone in the YouTube world. And so thank you for everyone who has subscribed to my YouTube channel. I can't say enough about it. It's amazing to see that. A few months ago, I said I'm going to just play around with the channel, and it's gotten to this point. In addition to that, having that validation to my family that I'm doing this is very helpful. I know people say this in their videos all the time. Um, it is true that you take away from your family or your other things that you're doing to make these videos, to go live, stuff like that. And I'm very well aware that I take that time to do it. And so when I have validation that, hey, I have 1,000 subscribers or whatever, or my channel's growing or this is going on, it validates it to my family that, hey, this is not just like a little, side thing I just decided to do on a whim. Really, I'm trying to build this out as a pretty awesome thing. So appreciate all of y'all subscribing, getting me to that point. I do this for y'all, so make sure you give me questions or send me questions. You ask questions, ideas that you have for videos, things you want to know. I'll do my best to build what I can with what I do know. So keep those coming in Discord, in the chats, in the comments. By the way, YouTube comments, I answer pretty much all of those as best I can. Discord is really where I can interact with you all better. Comments are awesome because here's the rub. Squirrel. So the algorithm is based on comments and interaction on the channel that promotes your videos. For me, as a person who's always been in support in some fashion or have helped support products or technology, Discord is the way I'm able to help people because I can do images and stuff. But then it's kind of like, well, I want to answer them in YouTube because then the algorithm sees there's activity on the video. So it's like, oh, what do I do? So if it gets down to the nitty gritty and I really need to get in, if you all have questions about something, and I need to really answer them with video or with snapshots or screenshots or whatever, I'll probably say, hey, run over to Discord or whatever. But I do try to keep up with both of those things as well. All right. Tree icon. I have an idea. Oh yeah, that's MDI icon. Exactly. Who said that? Somebody said that. That is my Christmas tree, actually. Have an idea in my head of a deciduous tree decorated for Christmas. Blueprints. Yeah. So work on those blueprints. Ask me questions. There are, again, in the exchange, if you're curious about how to build something or you have an issue or it's not working like you think it is, look at all these things here, the schema, look at the tutorial. I lost it. Anyway, it's somewhere in here. There's a tutorial. And then also look at the examples of all the other blueprints and kind of if you need to extend off of one of those. I actually had to look at a couple of those. And I will tell you one last thing here. I didn't go look at anybody else's blueprint video before I made this live stream or the blueprint video because I wanted a fresh perspective on how to do this. And so I learned it by reading the documentation here and doing some experimentation. By the way, in my videos, a lot of times you're seeing the final product, but there was research done to figure out how to do something. There was time spent not getting it to work, and I demonstrated that today on purpose. When you see an error, you have to go down a path and troubleshoot it. So, for whatever that's worth. The card is not normal button card. I don't think there's a mini button. What are we talking about? Oh, MDI Christmas tree. Here, let me show you my dashboard real quick. Like dashboard. Where's my dashboard? Dashboard. Let me find the tree. Switch. Oh, you know what? I'm not looking at the right thing. I'm doing this all now, and I made, of course, the video on this. Edit dashboard. Let me look at this particular card here. Let me look at the code editor, and let me find the tree. Search for tree. Well, there's the tree over there. There it is. So it's just MDI tree. Is there an MDI Christmas tree? And this is a regular button card for me, if that's what you're talking about. But those are standard button cards. Yeah, all these are standard button cards. I did that specific. Oh, wait. These are not button cards. These are custom button cards. But all these down here are button cards. And I experimented with these because someone had asked about building these button cards and whether or not it could be done in the UI using grid card and all this other stuff. And yes, you can. These are custom button cards with my custom formatting for when something's open or whatever. These are all standard button cards. And then this is MDI tree for the tree. I don't know if there's a Christmas tree or not. I mean, you can try this. The cool thing about this is when you edit live, it actually shows it live. So if I type, what are we doing here? Also, when you edit live, it also uses resources as it tries to render this Christmas-tree. So, yeah, I don't use scenes, by the way. I use scripts. It creates a scene. Let me fix this tree. So let me just cancel this. I don't know if there's if you ever, and we're talking about MDI icons, by the way. I know I'm getting long here. I need to get out before someone wants lunch here. Material design icons. This is what all of the Home Assistant icons are based off of. And you can search here. One thing I note about searching is you got to wait for, I don't know if they load this all in the background. They probably load all the thousands of icons in some sort of JSON object or a JavaScript object or whatever here. So if you try to search while this is still trying to load, then you won't find anything. So if I say tree and then you wait, at least if you're streaming, yeah, these are my options for tree. Tree on, tree off, or outline. Pine tree, palm tree. I don't know why that came up as a tree. Here's some code trees or whatever, family trees. Yeah, so MDI material design icons is what you're looking for. Okay, with that, I appreciate pine tree. Yeah, I could do pine tree. I'll probably change that later on. All right. Thank you all so much for. Oh, look, Restream's giving me congratulations for chatting. That's cool. Yeah. And when you type this stuff in, it renders it automatically. So if you think you know what the name of it is, like MDI lamp or MDI light bulb, on or off, you can type those too as you're going. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time today. It's been a fun stream. The interaction is the key, and I really like when you all are chatting here and we're doing stuff. I hope you found it useful. Again, Tuesday morning Central Time, the blueprint, the concise version of the blueprint video will come up, and watch that as well. And Discord, if you have questions, comments in the YouTube comment thing, all that kind of stuff. And have a great weekend. We should know now who the top 4 for college football in the U.S. is going to be. See who's going to be playing that. I wonder if A&M is going to be in there. Probably not. Y'all have a great day, and we will see you on the next stream. Cheers.